My name is Sophia Bennett. I was 37 years old when I learned that sometimes the people who hurt you most are the same people you spent your whole life trying to make proud. My father, Richard Bennett, owned a successful construction company called Bennett & Sons. The name was ironic, because there were 2 children in our family. My brother, Ethan, and me. But from the beginning, everyone assumed the company belonged to Ethan. Ethan was the son Dad saw as his successor. He was confident, outgoing, and always comfortable around money. I was different. I preferred numbers, paperwork, and quiet work. After college, I became an accountant and eventually started managing several businesses for clients. Dad was proud of my career. At least, that's what I thought. Whenever someone asked him about the future of Bennett & Sons, he always gave the same answer. Ethan will take over someday. I never argued. I told myself I didn't care. But deep down, I did. Because Bennett & Sons wasn't just a company. It was the business Dad had built from nothing. I remembered visiting the first tiny office when I was 10 years old. There were only 2 desks. One old computer. And a coffee machine that barely worked. Dad used to tell us, "One day, this company will take care of our family." I believed him. Ethan believed him too. But he interpreted those words differently. To Ethan, it meant the company would eventually take care of him. To me, it meant we would all have something to be proud of. That difference would eventually destroy our family. 6 months before Dad died, he invited Ethan and me to dinner. Mom was already sitting at the table. Dad looked unusually serious. "I've made a decision," he said. Ethan immediately smiled. "About the company?" Dad nodded. "I think it's time we start preparing for the future." Ethan leaned forward. I remained quiet. Dad looked at him. "After I'm gone, I want you to take over Bennett & Sons." Ethan's smile grew wider. "Really?" Dad nodded. "I've spent years preparing you." Ethan looked at me. I smiled. "Congratulations." He raised his glass. "Thanks, Sophia." Mom reached across the table. "We want the family to stay together." Dad nodded. "That's why I need both of you to understand something." He looked directly at me. "The company may go to Ethan, but that doesn't mean your role is unimportant." I nodded. "I understand." But something about his expression bothered me. He looked like he wanted to say more. Then he stopped. That night, after dinner, Dad asked me to stay behind. Ethan and Mom left the room. Dad closed the door. "Sophia." "Yes?" "I need you to promise me something." "What?" "No matter what happens, don't fight your brother over the company." I stared at him. I wasn't planning to. He smiled. "I know." Then he added something I'll never forget. "Sometimes the person who appears to receive everything isn't the person who actually owns it." I laughed nervously. "What does that mean?" Dad shook his head. "You'll understand someday." I thought he was speaking emotionally. I didn't realize he was giving me a warning. 3 months later, Dad suffered a heart attack. He survived the first one. But his health deteriorated quickly. During his final week, I visited him every day. One afternoon, he held my hand. "Are you taking care of yourself?" I smiled. "I'm fine." "You always say that." "Because I am." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he whispered, "I've left instructions." "For what?" "Everything." I thought he meant the company. Then he said, "Trust Mr. Harrison." Mr. Harrison had been our family attorney for almost 25 years. Why? Dad squeezed my hand. "Because when the time comes, he will explain." "Explain what?" But Dad closed his eyes. He was too tired to continue. 3 days later, he died. The funeral was enormous. Employees came. Business partners came. Old friends came. Hundreds of people stood outside the church. Ethan gave the eulogy. He spoke about Dad's work ethic, his determination, his sacrifices. Everyone cried. I cried too. Not because Ethan's speech was perfect, but because Dad was really gone. After the funeral, Ethan became almost impossible to reach. He was constantly in meetings, talking to lawyers, speaking with business partners, making plans. One evening, he called me. Sophia, Mom wants us at the house tomorrow. Why? The company announcement. What announcement? He laughed. You'll see. The next evening, I arrived at Mom's house. Ethan was already there. So was Mr. Harrison. There were several documents on the dining table. Ethan looked extremely confident. Mom sat beside him. Mr. Harrison opened a folder. Richard Bennett left detailed instructions regarding Bennett and Sons. Ethan leaned back. I listened quietly. The operating control of the company will be transferred to Ethan Bennett. Ethan smiled. Mom hugged him. I smiled too. Congratulations. Mr. Harrison continued. There are also several financial accounts and properties. He listed them one by one. Ethan received the majority of them. By the time he finished, Ethan had effectively inherited control over almost everything. The company. Several commercial properties. Investment accounts. Vehicles. Business assets. He looked at me. Looks like Dad knew who should lead. I ignored the comment. Then Mr. Harrison closed the folder. I believe that's everything for today. Ethan stood. Great. He shook Mr. Harrison's hand. Then he turned to me. Don't worry, Sophia. I'll take care of Mom. I nodded. Good. But as I stood up, Mr. Harrison looked at me. Just for a second. There was something in his expression. Concern. Almost like he was waiting for something. I was halfway to my car when my phone rang. It was Mr. Harrison. Sophia, can you come back inside? I turned around. Why? I need to speak with you privately. I walked back into the house. Ethan was already gone. Mom was upstairs. Mr. Harrison closed the door behind me. He looked tired. Sit down. I sat. He placed a small brown envelope on the table. My name was written on it. Sophia Bennett. I stared at it. What is this? Mr. Harrison didn't answer immediately. Your father gave this to me 11 months ago. I felt a chill. Why? He gave me very specific instructions. What instructions? Mr. Harrison pushed the envelope toward me. He told me not to open it until after Ethan had received control of the company. I stared at him. Why? Because your father didn't want Ethan to know about it. My heart began racing. What's inside? Mr. Harrison looked directly into my eyes. Something that changes what you heard tonight. I slowly picked up the envelope. My fingers trembled. Is it another will? Mr. Harrison didn't answer. That was answer enough. I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. At the top were Dad's words. Last will and testament, amendment. I stopped breathing. I read the first paragraph. Then the second. My hands began shaking. Mr. Harrison. Keep reading. I continued. And then I saw my name. Not Ethan's. Mine. I looked up. What does this mean? Mr. Harrison's voice was quiet. It means your father never intended Ethan to own the company outright. I stared at the document. But you just told him. I told him what your father instructed me to tell him. Why? Because your father wanted Ethan to reveal what he would do if he believed everything belonged to him. I couldn't speak. Then Mr. Harrison pointed to the final paragraph. There's more. I looked down. The final sentence read, my daughter Sophia Bennett shall become the controlling beneficiary of Bennett and Sons if my son Ethan attempts to transfer, sell, or misuse the company within 12 months of my death. My heart pounded. Ethan doesn't know. No. Then why would Dad do this? Mr. Harrison leaned back. Because your father suspected something. What? He looked toward the window. Your father believed Ethan had been secretly taking money from the company. I froze. My brother? Mr. Harrison nodded. And your father had evidence. I stared at the document. Suddenly, everything made sense. The secret meetings. Dad's strange warnings. The way he'd looked at Ethan during that final dinner. But there was one thing that I still didn't understand. If Dad knew Ethan was stealing, why give him control? Mr. Harrison looked at me. Because your father wanted proof. Proof of what? That Ethan would betray the company the moment he believed no one could stop him. I felt sick. Then Mr. Harrison placed another envelope on the table. This one contains the evidence. I stared at it. How much? He shook his head. Not money. Then what? He answered with 4 words. A recording of Ethan. My blood ran cold. What does he say? Mr. Harrison looked at me. You should hear it yourself. He reached for an old digital recorder. Pressed play. At first, there was only static. Then I heard my brother's voice. Clear. Calm. Confident. And the first sentence made my entire body freeze. Once Dad is gone, Sophia won't even know what hit her. I looked at Mr. Harrison. The recording continued. And suddenly, I realized that the inheritance wasn't the real story. My father had been preparing for a betrayal. And he had left me one final job. To stop my own brother from destroying everything he built. The room suddenly felt too small. I stared at the recorder on the table. My brother's voice continued playing. Dad trusts Sophia too much. She thinks everything is about hard work and honesty. She won't see it coming. I looked at Mr. Harrison. Where did you get this? Your father gave it to me. When? 2 weeks before he died. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My entire life, Ethan had been the charming one. The funny one. The brother everyone defended. And now I was hearing him talk about destroying the company our father had spent decades building. The recording continued. Once I control the company, I'll move the valuable contracts to my own firm. Dad won't be around to stop me. And Sophia won't have any legal claim. I felt my stomach drop. He planned this? Mr. Harrison nodded. Your father suspected it. But why didn't Dad confront him? Because suspicion isn't proof. He stopped the recording. I looked down at the amended will. So Dad deliberately let Ethan believe he had one? Yes. That's cruel. It was strategic. I couldn't answer. Then Mr. Harrison opened another folder. Inside were bank statements, invoices, company transfers, and several emails. He pushed them toward me. Your father hired an investigator 6 months before his death. I scanned the documents. There were transfers from Bennett and Sons to a consulting company. The company was registered under a different name. But the address was Ethan's apartment. My heart sank. How much? Just over $640,000. I looked up. Ethan stole $600,000? According to the evidence, yes. I suddenly remembered something. A conversation with Dad several months earlier. He had asked me, if someone you loved betrayed you, would you give them another chance? I had told him everyone deserved forgiveness. He had smiled sadly. Now I understood why he'd asked. The next morning, Ethan called me. Sophia, we need to talk. About what? The company. What about it? I want you to come to the office. His voice sounded confident. Almost too confident. I agreed. When I arrived, Ethan was sitting behind Dad's desk. My father's desk. The sight of him sitting there made something inside me hurt. Ethan smiled. Feels strange, doesn't it? What? Seeing me here. I said nothing. He opened a folder. I'm restructuring the company. Already? Dad left me in charge. He pushed a document toward me. I want you to sign this. I read the heading. Resignation and release agreement. I looked at him. You want me to resign? You don't work here. I know. But Dad always gave you access to the financial records. I helped him. Exactly. He leaned forward. I don't want unnecessary complications. I slowly pushed the document back. No. His smile disappeared. Why not? Because I don't understand why you need my signature. He stared at me. You're making this difficult. I haven't done anything. You're going to. His voice had changed. For the first time, I saw the real Ethan. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. Dad is gone, Sophia. You need to accept that things are different now. I stood. I've accepted it. I walked toward the door. Behind me, Ethan said. You're going to regret fighting me. I stopped. Turned around. And looked at him. I haven't fought you yet. Then I left. That evening, I met Mr. Harrison again. I told him everything. He listened quietly. Then he smiled. Good. Good? Yes. I don't understand. Your father predicted exactly this. He opened the amended will again. There is a second condition. What condition? If Ethan attempts to remove you from the company records, transfer major assets, or force you to surrender any legal interest, the amendment becomes immediately enforceable. I stared at him. So what happens? You become controlling beneficiary. Immediately? Yes. I couldn't believe it. But Ethan already thinks he owns everything. That is why your father designed it this way. Mr. Harrison leaned forward. Your father didn't want revenge, Sophia. Then what did he want? To give Ethan one final opportunity to choose responsibility. I looked down. And if he fails? Mr. Harrison closed the folder. Then the company comes to you. 2 days later, Ethan announced a major business deal. He planned to sell one of Bennett & Sons' most valuable commercial properties. The price was nearly $3 million. I immediately called Mr. Harrison. He's selling Dad's property. Did he sign anything? Not yet. Then don't panic. What should I do? Nothing. Nothing? Let him proceed. I couldn't understand. Why? Because the moment he signs that agreement, your father's condition is triggered. I realized what he meant. Ethan was about to prove everything. The following morning, Ethan invited the entire management team into the conference room. He announced the sale. Everyone applauded. I sat quietly at the back. Then Ethan looked at me. Sophia, would you like to say something? I shook my head. No. He smiled. I understand. This must be difficult for you. I didn't respond. The buyer's attorney placed the contract on the table. Ethan picked up the pen. And just before he signed, the conference room doors opened. Mr. Harrison walked in. Everyone turned. Ethan's face changed. What are you doing here? Mr. Harrison calmly placed a document on the table. I believe you should read this before signing anything. Ethan looked at the document. What is it? A legal notice. His expression hardened. From who? Mr. Harrison pointed toward me. From the controlling beneficiary of Bennett and Sons. Ethan slowly looked at me. Then he laughed. You've got to be kidding me. I said nothing. Mr. Harrison continued. Under the final amendment to Richard Bennett's will, any attempt by Ethan Bennett to transfer company assets without authorization triggers an immediate transfer of controlling interest. The room became completely silent. Ethan stared at the paper. No. Mr. Harrison nodded. Yes. Ethan looked at me. You knew? I answered quietly. Not until Dad's lawyer showed me the will. His face turned red. You're trying to steal my inheritance. I shook my head. No, Ethan. I looked at the contract in front of him. I'm stopping you from stealing Dad's company. He stood up. You think you're going to take this from me? Mr. Harrison interrupted. You already lost it. Ethan froze. Then Mr. Harrison placed one final document on the table. It contained the financial evidence. Your father knew about the $640,000. Ethan's face went completely pale. Nobody spoke. Then he whispered. Who told him? I looked at my brother. Dad knew more than you thought. And for the first time since the funeral. Ethan looked afraid. Ethan stood frozen in the conference room. The confidence he'd walked in with was gone. He looked at the financial records again. Then at me. You think this proves I stole from Dad? Mr. Harrison answered calmly. It proves money was transferred from Bennett and Sons to a company connected to you. Ethan shook his head. That wasn't theft. Then explain it. He couldn't. For the first time, I saw my brother without the confidence, without the excuses. Just a scared man who knew his plan had collapsed. The buyer quietly collected his documents. I think we'll postpone the transaction. Then everyone left the room. Only Ethan, Mr. Harrison, and I remained. Ethan looked at me. Did Dad really leave you control of everything? No. I looked him directly in the eyes. He left me the responsibility to protect it. Ethan laughed bitterly. Same thing. No. I shook my head. It's completely different. Mr. Harrison placed another document in front of him. Your father gave you a choice. Ethan frowned. What choice? You can challenge the amendment legally. Ethan immediately looked hopeful. And when? Mr. Harrison shook his head. Not if the evidence is authentic. Ethan's expression fell. But there is another option. What? You can admit what happened, repay the money, and agree to an independent audit of the company. Ethan stared at the floor. How long do I have? 30 days. He stood there silently. Then he looked at me. Would you really take the company? I hesitated. I don't want it. Then why are you doing this? Because Dad asked me to protect it. Ethan looked away. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he quietly said. I was angry. I frowned. At Dad? At everyone. He sat down. I spent my whole life believing Dad loved you more. That wasn't true. I know that now. He rubbed his face. When Dad praised you for working hard, I felt like he was telling me I wasn't good enough. I sat across from him. So you stole from him? I told myself I was borrowing it. How much? He looked down. 640,000. I couldn't believe he said it so easily. Why? To prove I could build something on my own. I stared at him. You could have asked Dad. He would have said no. Maybe. Ethan gave a weak smile. He always said no when I wanted shortcuts. I almost laughed. That sounds like Dad. For the first time, Ethan smiled too. But the smile disappeared quickly. I ruined everything. No, I said. You still have a chance to fix it. Over the next 30 days, everything changed. An independent audit began. Every company account was examined. Every property was reviewed. Every transaction was investigated. And the truth was worse than we expected. Ethan hadn't been the only person taking money. One of the company's senior financial managers had been helping him. They had created fake consulting invoices and transferred money through several accounts. Ethan finally admitted everything. He agreed to repay the money. He resigned from his position temporarily. And most importantly, he stopped fighting me. A month later, Mr. Harrison called us both into his office. He placed a new document on the table. The company remains protected under Richard Bennett's amendment. He looked at Ethan. You will not control it alone. Then he looked at me. And Sophia will remain the controlling beneficiary. Ethan nodded. I understand. I looked at him. Are you okay? He smiled. Actually, yes. Why? Because for the first time, I'm not pretending to be something I'm not. That sentence stayed with me. 6 months later, Bennett and Sons was stronger than before. Ethan returned to the company in a smaller role. He earned his position instead of inheriting it. And I became responsible for overseeing the company's finances. We still argued. We were still siblings. But things were different. There were no secrets anymore. One evening, Ethan and I visited Dad's grave. He placed a small envelope beside the flowers. What is that? I asked. A letter. To Dad? He nodded. What does it say? Ethan smiled. I'm not telling you. I laughed. Fair enough. We stood there quietly. Then Ethan said, You know what Dad's biggest mistake was? What? He waited until he was dying to tell us the truth. I nodded. Maybe. But his biggest success. He looked at me. Was making sure we finally learned it. I smiled. Then I remembered the secret will. The recording. The company. The money. Everything Dad had hidden. At first, I thought he had done it because he didn't trust us. Now I understood. He had hidden the truth because he wanted us to reveal ourselves. Ethan had a choice. He could become the man everyone expected him to be. Or become the man Dad believed he could be. And eventually, he chose the second. Before we left the cemetery, I looked at Dad's grave. Thank you, I whispered. Ethan looked at me. For what? For giving us one last chance. He nodded. Then we walked away together. The company wasn't mine. It wasn't Ethan's. It belonged to the people who had built it, the employees who depended on it, and the family Dad had spent his entire life trying to protect. And I finally understood what Dad meant that night when he told me. Sometimes the person who appears to receive everything isn't the person who actually owns it. Because inheritance isn't always about money. Sometimes it's about responsibility. Sometimes it's about trust. And sometimes, the greatest thing a father can leave behind isn't an empire. It's one final chance for his children to become better people.